Ever get weirded out when you hear someone say, God's my father? Like, what did they mean by that? I had a neighbor who was struggling with this say to me, reading a book about Jesus. I said, good, what is it? It was called The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Great book. So I said, oh, that's great, good to hear. He says, I'm struggling though. He says, I have no problem with Jesus, but God the Father? You know, I knew exactly what he meant because so many people struggle. Listen, if your father was absent, either emotionally or just not even there physically, you don't know who your father is, and you say, call God your father, that doesn't endear you to him. It's, you sort of draw a blank. You know, or if your father was so broken, a lot of people have, a father was angry with them, just angry all the time. Man, you call God your father, you're going to cringe. And worse, if, that father in your life was abusive, you're just going to get stressed out trying to call God. It's like a woman in my office in Edmonton. We were talking about this. She says, I can't call God Father. And I was trying to, and it hit me. Two things Jesus said. He said, I and the Father are one. He who has seen me, she who has seen me, a person who has seen me has seen the Father. You want to know what God is really like? Take a good look at me. And so I gave her what ended up being very helpful. I invited her to go through a gospel, any gospel. You know, it's the story, the life of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The New Testament part of the Bible starts with those stories. And I said, watch how Jesus interacted with children and say, oh, look at that. That's Jesus is showing us what God is like, how much he loves children. You know, women. Look at the respect Jesus had for women, how he elevated them. That's how God thinks of me as a woman, if I'm a woman. You know, if I mess up. Remember if you've ever read the story about this tax collector who'd been ripping people off, and Jesus held him accountable, but he restored him, got him, and ended up being a philanthropist. Peter, who failed. Even though he's a follower of Jesus, he still failed. Jesus just compassionately restored him. Compassion, that's another one, where Jesus would see people hungry or sick. And over you'll read this in one of the Gospels, and Jesus had compassion on them. Remember the woman caught in adultery and people were just judging her and that? Jesus said, go and sin no more. I don't condemn you, but get free from, this view of yourself. And so Jesus just, anytime you see how Jesus treated people, say, that's what God is like. That's he who has seen me, Jesus said, has seen the Father. The other one is this. The other thing Jesus said is this. He says, our Father in heaven. Makes a distinction between our earthly fathers, who, however good they are, will fall short, and our heavenly Father. You're going to the Father who loved you so much, he gave his Son so that you could have a second chance. That's the God. So healing comes when you see God the Father the same as Jesus, his Son. You've heard the statement, like Father, like Son. It sort of goes like Son, like Father. Hope that helps.